Without a radical shift in policy, we face a steady, inexorable compound decline similar to the 1960s and 1970s. But neither should a country, especially one with such a proud history as ours, slip gently into a lower league without a strenuous effort, at least, to prevent it.
So do you think we are slipping gently into a lower league because of Brexit, Martin Daubney?
No, we're not. I mean, let's look at the facts. In December, the Organisation for the Economic Cooperation and Development charted that the growth of the UK will outstrip all of the G7 nations this year. Might not feel like it, and there's a cost of living crisis, heating bills through the roof. But the idea that Tony Blair is a solution to our problems is fantasy. But here's a guy who's currently having over 1 million people asking to be stripped of his knighthood. They're rightly outraged about his involvement in the illegal war in Iraq. And yet here he is again telling us how to run the country. And we must remember, it was Blair that began the ball rolling on Brexit. Over 2.2 million immigrants came into the UK during his watch, 97 to 2010. That's a quadrupling. And that suppressed wages. It caused housing shortages. Time and time again, Blair was warned, but he was wedded to the idea of free movement because he's a globalist. That set the ball rolling to a Brexit he tried his utmost to cancel. He stood against the democratic will of the 17.4 million. We don't need to listen to Tony Blair. He isn't the answer. He should put a sock in it.
Aisha.
Well, I think Tony Blair has every right to voice his opinion, as I do, as Martin does. He has more authority than Martin does or I do. He won 3 big elections. He was the Prime Minister of this country for a long time. In his speech, by the way, he doesn't just talk about Brexit. He talks about the economic damage from Brexit. And there is economic damage. We're seeing it now. The economy has had a big shock. We've got huge labour shortages. It's affecting small businesses in this country. It's affecting people's everyday lives. If you want to get any work done, in your house or anything like that, you can't anymore because we have such labour shortages. We've got labour shortages affecting social care, affecting the health service. We have a really big practical issue with Brexit. I'm not going to relitigate the whole thing. I mean, my position was very clear. I was against Brexit, but let's not relitigate that now. But Tony Blair is also talking about other deeper structural problems in our society. He's talking about the looming challenges of climate change. He's talking about the technological challenges that will face this country. Things like AI are coming down the track, and also deep structural problems in things like the health service. We've just spent the beginning of this programme talking about the psychodrama that has engulfed the Conservative Party, who won that stunning victory 2 years ago. They had this very good idea of levelling up. There's no meat on the bones. We've got huge crises across various sectors, from housing to social care to the health sector. Businesses are having a hard time. Farmers are having a really hard time because of Brexit. What the former Prime Minister is saying is there doesn't seem to be a plan. And given what we just started the show with, there doesn't seem to be a plan other than how to try to save Boris Johnson's skin.
I know you're not a fan of Boris Johnson, Martin Daubney, anyway, so you probably go along with this, but we don't really even know how the Northern Ireland thing is going to shake down with Brexit. What we've got at the moment doesn't work. It's terrible because you're having to check goods coming into Northern Ireland as if they're going into the EU. It's really unfair on people in the province. So how can that be good?
Well, it's not a good thing. And Northern Ireland is a fault line on Brexit. The fishing industry was betrayed totally by Boris Johnson. That's another fault line on Brexit. And so is the continued membership of the European Court of Human Rights, which means we can't do anything about the illegal immigration problem, which is blighting this nation and shaming us on the international stage. But back to Blair, the notion that he's talking about climate change as a challenge is completely true, but he's getting it wrong once again, because his ideological shove to net zero is going to bankrupt the working classes. It's going to force us to have boilers that we don't want at 20 grand a pop, £1,700 a year cost of living increases, chasing this unicorn politics that China and Russia are completely ignoring. We're energy dependent on tyrants, and we need to be energy self-sufficient and sovereign. Blair doesn't want that. Blair wants renewables, which cost too much. And this idea that he's saying that we can control illegal immigration by biometrics. And what that basically means is fingerprint ID or photo ID on smartphone apps. It's ludicrous. These people are arriving without even a passport. So Blair is a globalist and he's a fantasist, and he's also a shill. He wants huge amounts of money out of countries via the Tony Blair Institute because he poses problems, and if you pay him tons of money, he'll offer you a solution at a big price.
You'll have to explain shill, because I know it's a big word on Twitter. I see it thrown around. What does it mean, Martin? It's one of those Twitter insults.
Well, it basically means somebody who is grifting for money off the back of a cause. And his causes are popular causes.
Okay.
I mean, he backs climate change, he backs COVID passports, and the media give him a free pass. Why? The public are sick of the guy.
Well, I suppose when he speaks, it's news by definition. Shill, grifting, is that him, Aisha?
Well, it's very ironic, Martin saying that. I mean, there's a whole kind of class of people that have shilled off the back of Brexit lies, and the country is now going to the dog. So I think that is highly ironic. And also, just to pick up on a couple of points that Martin made, climate change is happening. It's not just Tony Blair that wants to do something about climate change. Boris Johnson wants to do something about climate change. There is a lot of consensus across different parts of the political spectrum, across different ages. Of course, we have to make sure that the measures we take on climate change are just and fair, but we cannot sort of ignore the huge problem that is coming down the track for us. And in terms of immigration, Britain is not being shamed because people are wanting to come here. Britain is being shamed because we've become a laughing stock on the international stage. We gave up a really powerful position as being part of the European Union. We basically self-harmed, and we're a bunch of absolute clowns now. That is why people are, that's what's embarrassing Britain. And also a very tough stance on immigration is making people look at us. We're threatening to sort of try and breach international treaties on immigration.
Stop there, because we will come back to you, Aisha, but we've got to take calls in the next part on this. So there it is, right? There's the disagreement. Are we now a bunch of clowns? Tony Blair says lower league. Aisha says clowns. Or do you agree with Martin? It's time for Blair to get back in his box.